This is a demo for cross-layer system security homework 4. In this assignment we had to make a SYN flood attack detector, and the way we do that is we import a PCAP file which contains all of the packets that were sent and received over the network for a short period of time, and we analyze whether there was way more SYN requests than there were positive responses. And if that's true, then we've determined that there was possibly a SYN flood attack. So you can see an example of this program running on the left side. So this is our dangerous PCAP, which contains some SYN flood attacks. So it takes a couple seconds to run, but once it runs, it shows a summary of what it found. So it creates a summary for each source and target, request and response. So you can see this first one, there was 52 requests, 52 responses, which is great. 0 requests, 0 responses, that's great. But for these last two, you can see that there are way more SYN counts than response counts. And what I'm counting as a response is a SYN flag and an acknowledge flag, which is the second step in a TCP handshake. And the code actually produces a warning for these last two because the ratio of SYN flags to positive responses is above 3. And it also includes the possible attacker and the possible target. So we also have a quick demo of how it works on a clean file. So for this one, it doesn't produce any warnings. And if you remember, the trace 1 PCAP is actually safe. So what's happening in the code is, if we look in the main, the first little bit is just setting up the linked list and handling the input arguments. And this last little bit right here is where the main application is. So it enters a PCAP loop, which is part of the PCAP library, which basically reads in that PCAP file and determines what the headers and the actual data are, and then it passes that into the process cap or process PCAP function. It's the handler for each packet, and then at the end it does this display and warn function, which we'll see in just a minute. Inside my process PCAP function, I just determine if that packet is an IP packet. If it is, I determine if it's a TCP packet. And if it is, then this is the main chunk right here. It determines if the SYN flag is set. If it is, it increases that count for the selected source and target pair. And otherwise, if that is the SYN flag is set and the acknowledge flag is set, then the positive response counter for that source and target pair is set. And so once that finishes processing all of the packets, then we run the display function, which is where you saw the table on the left side, where it displays the source IP, target IP, SYN count, response count. And then finally it runs this warn function, which may or may not output anything depending on what the ratio of SYN flags to response count is. If that ratio is above 3.0, which I've defined at the top of the file, it'll output a warning.